Joining us with some insights on this is Behnam Taleblu. He's Senior Fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Ben, it's good to talk with you again. So in their haste to reach a deal, are the Europeans and Americans making too many concessions? What are the Iranians giving? Anything?
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you again. It seems like this is not merely a restoration or a resurrection of what was, by 2015 standards, a fatally flawed deal, but kind of quickly shaping up to be, based on what some are alleging since the past year of indirect talks, a less for more or a more for less, depending on whose position you are in, of course. The Iranians are not only insisting on going back to the sanctions that were waived by the 2015 nuclear deal, but they're actually asking for most of the Trump-era sanctions, which built on top of those penalties, to be removed again. And ultimately, on their own side, they're saying they won't concede more on the nuclear front. So the U.S. will have to be paying more for less timed restrictions on the clock, which is, again, in my view, a strategic mistake on steroids.
Iranian leaders often refer to the United States as the great Satan. There's an old adage that the devil is in the details. So share some specifics here. What in the devil's going on?
Well, ultimately, I think American domestic politics has been on full display for quite a while now, at least half decade, if not the past decade. But the enmity of the Islamic Republic has been almost permanent. Ever since the Islamic Republic came into existence 43 years ago, they ideologically and politically have harbored this enmity against the United States of America, to which they have called the label you've mentioned, the Great Satan. Now what they're trying to do is they're trying to get as much cash and sanctions relief as they can up front while keeping most of their nuclear program intact to be able to threaten not just this administration, but any future administration, which may revert to pressure. You can call it Iran's quest for a financial and nuclear snapback.
So what's the biggest sticking point in the negotiations at this point?
Well, there are allegedly several, but it depends on who you talk to. You know, the Russian ambassador said that a deal could be finalized within hours, if not days. I think he said 24 to 48 hours. But ultimately, the Iranians themselves say 98% of what could be a future agreement is already complete. As much as the Iranians want to deflect here, the ball is in their court. They could come back. They could change negotiating positions one more time. And in essence, who could blame them if Washington has changed its position to accommodate the Iranians so much over the past year?
Haven't they resisted an investigation into what they've been doing there with their nuclear program?
Most unfortunately, the Iranians have not only resisted an investigation, they've prevented access to certain sites. They don't have, appropriate explanations, even by, according to what the IAEA is saying, to undeclared traces of man-made uranium particles that the IAEA has found. They still don't have a good explanation for why they retained what the Israelis discovered and exposed, which is an atomic archive, basically past weaponization studies and experiments and plans. So there is a lot in Vienna, not on the political track in these fancy, historic, expensive hotels, but rather where the IAEA is actually headquartered there, which is in Vienna, that has not gotten the limelight. And I think the deal, again, stands to drown out this more important technical track of unanswered, outstanding questions. And if you don't have this blueprint of what Iran's past and present nuclear program look like, how are you going to try to restrict it with some kind of short-lived political agreement today?
And I know Israel and some U.S. officials say this agreement would give Iran a quicker breakout time. They could enrich enough uranium to build a nuclear bomb within 6 to 9 months instead of a full year. Your thoughts on that, Ben?
Well, again, it's more proof that Washington and its diplomatic partners on the P5+1 who support this are proving to the Islamic Republic that they're willing to settle for less. The Islamic Republic literally came out a few days ago and said that they don't believe in America's plan B. They don't believe America has another alternative track or to put it differently, a pressure track. So that's why the Islamic Republic can continue to extort the U.S. indirectly at these negotiations and get changes based on real nuclear facts on the ground, real advancements the Islamic Republic has made over the past year and a half, which in terms of knowledge are irreversible, no matter the time restrictions that exist within the deal.
And President Biden says the renewed agreement would put Iran's nuclear program back in a box. So, Ben, is it a nuclear Pandora's box? Where is this all heading?
This is really a house of cards here. We could come up with analogies all day, but ultimately, I think one thing is very clear, that the strategic reason the Biden administration wants this is to be able to buy time using more money to actually get less time on the clock, to pivot out of the region, to focus on other issues. But the world, per the Ukraine crisis, has proven that it's not stovepipe like that the world is actually much more interconnected, that Iran actually has, for lack of a better word, lawyers on the P5+1, the Russians and the Chinese, people who stand to benefit by a new fatally flawed deal coming to the fore again. So ultimately, this would be a self-defeating move to pay more, to get less time on the clock, to make this or a future administration have to deal with a much larger, much more dangerous nuclear program, one that the Iranians would be in more control of and could dangle in front of us at a time of their choosing.
Okay, we'll see where all this is headed, what's negotiated. Ben Taleblu, FDD Senior Fellow. Thank you, Ben, for sharing your insights. We appreciate it.
Thank you.